Okay, on to session 3, which as you read is called Some Possible Pathways to Financial Freedom. Now, while it is imperative that we keep and base our lives on all the principles we've looked at in sessions 1 and 2, on the principles of sowing and reaping and obeying the scriptural injunctions to give and to have our lives aligned with the Word of God and live by faith and so on and so forth, God sometimes gives wealth-creating ideas. And this particular session wants to take a very practical view of the whole principle of giving and receiving, especially in line with being able to release time by young and older men and women of God to serve the kingdom in greater ways. So that's what this session is about. So let's dive straight into the particular notes that we have here. Okay, so we just covered A, so let's look at B. For those who sense a calling to give more of their time to building the kingdom, semi-passive or passive income becomes very helpful and frees up time. Now, what do I mean by a passive or semi-passive income? Well, passive income is money that comes into your account by you not doing anything to earn it in the way of a job or using your time or your skills to do anything. Now, most of us don't have passive income. Perhaps those who are elderly will eventually get some pension money, which they've accrued over the course of their lives, and now every month some money comes in, and that will continue whether they work or get up or not. Semi-passive income is income that you get from when you work on a job that perhaps gives you more money than the time invested in it. So you get money back from a source that doesn't require as much energy and time and input as an ordinary job would. That's semi-passive income. Now, this is very relevant for young and older people, as I was saying earlier, who want to free up some of their time. And my son-in-law, Adam, his name is, he decided he was going to be a part-time plumber in order to become the pioneer of a new church plant. So he's a good plumber, but he carves out certain times and weeks in his year when he's going to give his time to doing his plumbing work. And he manages to earn enough money during those weeks that enable him then to have the rest of those weeks to be able to give himself to building the church and exploring ways in which he can serve the kingdom. He's an example of somebody who is what you might call a bivocational leader, as somebody who employs tactics to create semi-passive income. Okay. Equally, many are also called to make money to financially support kingdom causes. So I know people, and they're lovely people, who are very good at creating businesses. They've got great business acumen, very skilled in the whole arena of doing business. And they manage to create businesses that release a lot of money, more than they need themselves. And so they give a lot of that money away to support kingdom initiatives. And we are recipients of one or two of those people who support us personally as well in that way, which is a wonderful blessing. And all you have to do is reflect upon the Jewish race, even today, let alone what it was in Abraham's time, where God blessed their work of their hands, and they seem to have been blessed by God as a people to be able to make wealth and make income through creating businesses and so on. On to point B. For those who sense a calling to give more of their time, sorry, I've covered that, I beg your pardon, so you can cut that bit. On to point C. God's ideas are practical and exciting. His creative energy can flow through our minds and can change our circumstances and future. We must therefore be open to receive such unique ideas to solve problems and create income. Now, as I was saying to you before, there have been many men and women of God who have had these wealth-creating ideas that have created items such as inventions, business ideas that release money. And you may be one of those as you listen to me today. Maybe there's an excitement in your heart as you're listening to this and you think, yeah, that's me. I carry that ability. God seems to have given me the ability to make money, to create and operate, lucrative businesses. Well, that's a wonderful thing. And I encourage you to give yourself to that. And maybe that is your ministry call. You're a marketplace leader, as it were. And you can represent the kingdom in the manner in which you conduct business, the righteousness, the equity that you employ in your business dealings, all of which will bring blessing from God. And we bless you in Jesus' name if you're called to do that. Because the kingdom needs men and women just like you who are able to give freely to the cause of God's kingdom. Okay, let's move on to the second point here. Becoming a bivocational leader. Now, as I said to you before, a bivocational leader is a leader who gives part of his time or her time to a business or some kind of income generating work, but the other half or portion of their time to building the kingdom. A bivocation. Vocation means job. Bi means two jobs. So you have one job building the church, one job earning the finances to enable you to have time to do that. So I've got a quick question here. Is it acceptable for a pastor or other senior leader to also have a secular job? And I want you to give reasons for your answer. So maybe you can stop the recording and just chat about that now. Now, in Britain and America, such a question is not that unusual because there are many leaders and pastors who do such things. But in my experience in other countries such as Africa, it's sometimes not an easy thing for a pastor to also have another job. Discuss why that is and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Okay, so I wonder what you discussed there. Well, consider this is part B. Consider this in the light of Module 4's teaching on becoming a team of leaders. Is the Lord calling more of us to either trust Him to meet our needs by going part-time in our secular employment, or reducing our church-based salary by creating additional semi-passive income? So what was the outcome of your discussion? Did you decide that maybe it is right, maybe it is acceptable for a pastor to become a bivocational leader? In fact, why not? Scriptures don't say that you have to be like that. In the end of the day, there's more than just the pastor in the fivefold ministry team. There's the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the teacher. Should they all get paid full time? Should they be able to work or not? So these things are a little bit more outside the box maybe than we've been used to looking at. But I believe personally that the Lord is beginning to release a lot more people by becoming bivocational. And I know a number of pastors who have decided that for them, it's better to release some of the money that goes into their salary by getting a part-time job. And that's not a bad thing to do at all, because it gives them access to the real world of work, and therefore they can probably pastor more effectively and more empathetically with their people, having been in the context that their people are in. What might the effects of this be on the church's ministry and on its finances? So you could also ask that question. If the finances that were normally given to salaries could also be given in part to other ministries, what effect could that have? It could have quite an enormous effect. So now we're going to explore many ways in which we can facilitate and cause to happen this bivocational ministry calling that some people may have. Welcome back to the part 3 of your notes, which is called The Principles of Financial Sufficiency and Freedom. And we're going to dive a bit deeper into this whole subject of bivocational ministry and generating semi-passive income to release time for ministry. Okay? So if you look at A, it says understanding the mechanics of semi-passive income. And I'm going to try and teach you this using a model on the next slide. Now, as you can see on this slide, there are 4 boxes. The top box is called the income box. One down from that is expenses. The one on the left is assets. The one on the right is liabilities. So we all know what income is. Income is money that comes in from a job or other sources of income. Expenses, again, I'm sure we know what that means. It's what comes out of our bank account. It's the cost of living, effectively. Assets are things like rental property, shares, businesses, money that's coming into us outside of our job. Liabilities are things which again come out of our source of income, things like mortgages, having a car to run, maybe the things that we like to do with our spare time. I've called it toys here, which things like some people like a boat, or they like to have a set of golf clubs and do things like that, which is great, no problem with that, but they do cost money, they're liabilities. Loans, debts, bills, they're all liabilities, aren't they? And so you can see on the diagram there that the green arrows are the money coming in to your account. The red arrows are money coming out of your account. So I got a couple of questions here. What is an asset? Well, as we say, you can see under I, assets are things that create an income. So if you got an asset, it'll be something that's creating money to come into your account. What is a liability? Well, a liability are things that create an expense. And so here's my question. What is an asset? And when is an asset not an asset? Now, many people in the UK, and no doubt in other parts of the world, call their home their asset. They say, my house is my asset. But let's examine that statement on the basis of an asset brings money in and a liability takes money out. Does a house, your house, my house, bring money in? Answer, no. Does it take money out? Answer, yes. So, in effect, my own personal home where I live is only an asset when I sell it. And then I'm going to have another house to live in. So, if I sell it and I downsize to a cheaper house, then my house can release money to me. But until that happens, and usually it doesn't happen until you get towards the end of your life, that house is no longer an asset, or no longer, it's never been an asset, because it's always taken money away from you. Now that's an interesting thought, isn't it? So let's have a look at the next few slides, which show financial statements of different individuals, and ask the question, which one do you fit into? So here we go. Use the cash flow pattern of a relatively poor or average person. So we got the same four boxes of income, expenses, assets and liabilities. The poor person's income usually comes from pay that they do from a job or salary, or they may even do a self-employed job, and money is coming into their account. Usually not that much. Coming out of their expenses are all their living costs, their taxes, their rent, etc. And that's money taken away from them. What's in their asset box or their liabilities box? Nothing. Same with their asset box. Nothing. So they don't have any assets. And because of that, they've probably got very few liabilities, because all they've got is their living costs. So there's an equilibrium of sorts there, isn't there? Equilibrium means that there's, it's stable. That money's coming in and money's going out at the rate of it's coming in. So it's stable. But in order to maintain that status quo, you're going to have to keep on working. And when you stop working, things start to change and you take a dive in your income and your living standards. And many people who retire poor because they've stopped their job and that's all they've had in their lives. And I've called that a treadmill existence, meaning you have to keep on working in order to survive. So now let's have a look at the cash flow patterns of a middle class person. Somebody who's maybe a doctor, a dentist, a teacher, a lawyer, a solicitor, somebody who's a professional middle-class person. Same four boxes. Money coming in from a well-paid job provides their income. They have living costs and taxes and insurance, just like the other person, but probably a lot more because they live in a bigger house. They may drive a more expensive car. So huge amounts of money are taken away. What's in their liabilities box? Well, mortgages. Maybe they got credit or store cards or loans or fees for their children to go to private education. Or maybe they enjoy the toys of a boat or a set of golf clubs or some skis or whatever it is they enjoy doing. So lots of money coming into the expenses that's going out of their account. What have they got in their assets box? Nothing. If a middle class person, well paid, has no assets, then they're not too dissimilar to the poor person. In fact, maybe worse off, because the poor person's got a simple life where not many things are coming out of it, whereas the middle class person, because they have a lot more money coming in, they can afford more things. But what happens when their job ends, or they get sacked, or the company or business goes bust? They're in a real difficult place, aren't they? Because you've got lots of expenses to pay for. You could say they're an even bigger treadmill existence than the poorer person. Have a look now at the cash flow patterns of successful bivocational leaders. Same 4 boxes. However, they're a slightly different shape. The expenses box is smaller in comparison to the other 3. And it's all relative, as you'll see. Okay, in this case, the income is coming from semi-passive income, all right? So they may have an employed job, which is part of their time, but they've also got semi-passive income sources as well. So the point here on our little diagram, employment income decreases as semi-passive income increases. So they may start out by working, a 40-hour week, but because they've got other things coming in, semi-passive income sources, they're able to give up some of their time, but their money doesn't dip in terms of the amount that's coming in. Expenses, money taken away from you decreases relatively, because if there's a lot more money coming in, the expenses to live are not quite so pressurizing, so they decrease relatively. How is that? Well, because there's lots of assets creating passive income. Increasing number of passive income assets. So the liabilities are there definitely, but they also decrease relatively the more the assets grow. And so this person, time rich and financially sufficient. Able to support yourself and give to others. So can you see that that is by far a better scenario, and which releases a lot more time if it's possible for you to be able to develop more assets in order to support your ministry or the pursuit of the life you want. So which one do you fit into? Well, in my experience of doing this course, most people fit into the first one or the second one. Not that many people fit into the one that's on your screen now, the third option. But it's my passion, as part of what Caleb Ministries does, is to help people discover and access passive income assets in order for them to free up time. And I'm inspired by my son-in-law, my other son-in-law, AJ. He's an electrician, and he has a similar passion and heart as well. And so these guys have found ways in which they can work, but part-time, yet receive income to support their families comfortably. And that's a great noble aim. Let's keep moving forward. Part B of number 3, cash flow and the cash flow quadrant, a key to financial independence and freedom. So you come a couple of questions. Are you working for money, or is money working for you? Now, those who are retired, their money is working for them, because all throughout their life they've paid into a pension pot, and now that pension pot releases interest, which creates an income for them. That's an example of when money is working for you. But usually the younger person or the middle-aged person isn't in that privileged position. But it's possible for them to get there by the purchase or acquisition of income-generating assets. Next question. Are you serving mammon, or are you serving God, and mammon is under your feet and serving you? What is mammon? Well, it means money. It's a Semitic word for money. So are you serving money, or is money serving you? Same question. Next point, income generated from assets is a significant key to financial independence. That is, semi-passive income is the key to freeing up time and gaining financial sufficiency. So I want you to consider this. Now, a number of us are going to probably start feeling a little uncomfortable because we're now having to think outside our comfort zone and our box. But I encourage you, I challenge you, because I've had to do it, and I'll explain our situation shortly. But if you want to free up time, if you want to be able to give the church more money by becoming only part salaried, then you need to consider these things because they could release and free up a lot of time and money for you and for the kingdom. So let's have a look at the cash flow quadrant in the next slide. So there you see you have 4 different styles of income generation. The first one is an employee. This is a person who is employed by a business or a company or the government even, and they get a salary as a result of that. The next one is the self-employed person. That is somebody who has actually created their own business and they're running it. A business owner is the next one. That is a person who has developed a business, whereas the other one is the investor. Okay. So with the employee, you work for others. A self-employed, you work for yourself. Business owner, people work for you. And the investor, money works for you. So let's have a look at the employee situation. There's positives and negatives about being an employee. The positives is relative security, as long as the company or the business you work for isn't going to go bust, and sometimes they do. It's predictable, so you know you're going to get that salary every month. You may get sick benefits, you certainly do in the West, whether you do in other countries, I don't know. And you may well get a pension. So they're the positives. The negatives is it's a fixed wage. You're never going to really improve on that except by inflation, and sometimes you don't even get that. You have to pay the highest tax. Do you realize that? You pay the highest tax. It's 9 to 5 daily, so you don't have any other time apart from the hours outside of that, and usually too tired either side of that. It's a static future. You're not going to get any better or worse. It remains static. And so when you do retire, as I said earlier, you end up being a little bit poorer. Let's have a look at the self-employed person. What are their positives and negatives? Well, they earn more money potentially because they can work more. They work their own time. There's better tax advantages and it's enjoyable. My 2 sons-in-law love being plumbers and electricians. And so they enjoy that. But they don't have to do it every day if they don't want to. The negatives, however, is that they have to work hard. And they do. No work, no pay. And if they get sick, then things start to dip. No benefits. They don't have benefits because they work for themselves. It can be very stressful, especially when there's no work out there. The business owner, the positives, high income. Others work for you. Capital growth because you own an asset that's growing in value. You get the best tax advantages as all because you're a limited company. The negatives, you risk the capital you put in if the thing goes belly up. Belly up means that it folds, that it goes bad and it has to be ended. You have to pay wages, whether there's money coming in or not. So sometimes, you have to dip into your savings for that. It's quite consuming because you're always thinking about it. It takes a lot of headspace. What about money working for you, for the investor? The positives, passive income, meaning that income's coming in whether you get out of bed or not. Unlimited income, as long as you keep on purchasing or acquiring more and more assets. Money is working for you because the money you use to buy, let's say, a piece of real estate, that money then starts to work for you because it creates a monthly income from rental income. It also creates capital growth income on average over a period of time because it goes up in value. And your time then is freed up to be your own. What about the negatives? Well, you have to risk capital to do it. And you have to service the investments, which compared to the other negatives isn't that bad. And what a lot of people do, they start as an employee, then they become self-employed, they may become a business owner, and eventually they become an investor. Now that's something, again, to take away with you and think about and analyze and think, how on earth does that relate to me? Because if you can see yourself in some of these capacities or developing some of these capacities, then you may find that semi-passive income becomes possible for you and you can become bivocational, which will free up a lot more time for you and for the kingdom. The next section looks at practical routes to financial freedom, avenues for income generation. So we're going to be looking to, in this particular section of our notes, on how we can actually consider ways in which we might be able to explore more this suggestion of exploring passive income ways. So progressing from active to semi-passive income. So over to the last page of the notes, page 9. Such income is often derived from buying and renting out real estate. Now, as I shall explain shortly, that's part of the way that I generate passive income for myself and my wife and my family, is by buying and renting out real estate or housing. Now, training is vital, and I've probably been to many courses and read lots of books about it, so that I'm familiar with what the principles and processes should be. And I would strongly suggest you do the same before you ever embark on anything like that. On to B. For most of us, however, in order to release time, it will probably require us to make some sacrifices to reduce our expenditure and at the same time learn how to become involved in one or a number of semi-passive income stream businesses. Okay, so you have to be prepared to maybe make some sacrifices in your own income expectations so that you can free up some time in order to explore other ways of earning some income in this way. And I've got a few examples coming up here. First one is building your own home-based business. For example, advertising, buying and selling on eBay, Amazon, things like that. A lot of people make money by doing buying and selling online. You might want to explore that. It's a little bit saturated these days because a lot of people are doing it, but it's still possible to make some money in that way. The next one, promoting other people's online products as an affiliate, using, for example, an organization called clickbank.com. Now, clickbank.com is a forum that people who have written, say, a course or a book or a magazine, or they have a product of some kind that can operate online, and they allow ClickBank to be, as it were, the catalog, the advertising agent. And so you could go on clickbank.com and find a product that's already been written by somebody else, and you can market that to your friends and your families and your contacts and say, look, if you buy this product, it'll enhance your life because it's all about this, and you get a portion of the sale of that product when somebody's bought it. A lot of people are doing that too, and they're advertising and expressing the fact that they are an affiliate of this particular product, and if they buy from you, you get a portion of that money. Some people have done that. Okay, and the third one is developing your own property portfolio or taking over someone's property before they default under an options agreement and then profit from renting it out. So again, this is another complicated passive income stream, which a number of people I know are making very nice money on a monthly basis from it. What it involves is this. Somebody thinks to themselves, I can't sell my property for various reasons. So you say, I will take out an options agreement with you and I will control your property. I'll make sure your mortgages are paid every month, but I can use your property with your agreement to do it up, make it better in terms of its attractiveness. And then you can rent it out to somebody who will pay you a much higher rate of pay than the mortgage that you have to pay on the property. So you can make £200 or £300 a month, for example, in Britain, on such an option agreement, which if you do several of those can create a passive income for you. There are many pitfalls, of course, and training is very, very necessary before you embark upon that. And just to say that Caleb Industries does offer a property training course that we could make available to you, should you be interested in that. Okay, the next one, finding property deals and selling them on to other property investors. So this involves searching out for people who are motivated sellers. That is, people who want to sell their houses quickly, but because they may not be in a very good state of repair, they find it very difficult to sell them. Now, this can apply to maybe parents or grandparents who have died and they've left the house to the next of kin, and you might be the next of kin. You've got this property and you want to sell it quickly. So along comes somebody else and say, look, I will buy your property, but I'll buy it at 15 or 20% below its market value for a quick sale. You then acquire the property, you send in a team of renovators, they make the property good, goes back on the market, you can sell it for a lot more than you bought it for. That's another way people are doing it. Or instead of you actually acquiring the property to do it up, you sell the deal on to somebody else who's looking for something like that. And people make money that way as well. So you have to think out of the box, and it's not for everybody. For those who are risk averse, they might find this impossible to do. But there are ways, and you need to find the way that fits you best. I know other men of God actually who have their own personal websites that are promoting ministry and articles about ministry and leadership. But surrounding the web page are little banners advertising other people's products. And so they charge that business a monthly fee to have their banner on their website. And as soon as somebody looks at their website to read a Christian article, they're going to see this banner. And if they're interested, for example, in buying curtains or, I don't know, going on a holiday or whatever it might be, they click on that banner, it takes them to the website, and they may then buy the holiday or buy the curtains or whatever the advert is there for. But of course, the person owning the website, so long as they get many hits, and there's lots of people going on a regular basis, it's worth paying a fee by the holiday company, for example, to put their banner on your website, because many people are going to your website and it's great advertising for them. But they'll pay something for that. Now, what do you have to do once you've loaded up on your website to make money? Nothing. Every time somebody looks at your website, they see it. You don't have to do anything. It's what they call passive income when that happens. And lots of people are doing that and making a living out of it as well. So, as I said, it's out of the box thinking, isn't it? Blue sky thinking, as they call it. And C, I just mentioned it, it just takes a bit of out of the box thinking and asking yourself, what is in my hand? That's what God asked Moses, of course, in Exodus 4:2. And he saw a staff and he did great things with that staff. What is in your hand? What have you got? What expertise do you have? What interests do you have? What skills do you have? What thoughts can you process to be able to enter into this kind of world? Okay, D, any successful business has a good system. Good businesses are all about good systems because a good system can be replicated. So the best businesses are things that can have repeat business, that the system creates a repeat of everything, and it's a bit boring, but it works. You know, somebody clicks on the banner, they buy it. So more people will want to put banners on your website. Then they hear news that because the banner's on your website, they've had 10 more sales that month. So somebody else will hear about it and want to put their banner on your website. And so a good system causes the thing to grow well. The right balance, this is part E, may involve a combination of the above income streams, aiming eventually for the majority of your income to become semi-passive income. Now, I hate teaching anything I'm not being an example of, and so I just want to illustrate what I'm sharing by my own experience and my own way of generating income. Because to run Caleb, I have to have a lot of time. In fact, most of my waking hours are devoted to Caleb. But I do have some means whereby I can get income coming in to support my wife and I, which enables me to do that and frees up the time. So let me just illustrate by looking at myself. Well, because I used to be a school teacher, my wife was as well, we'd have a teacher's pension. Now that gives us 30% of what we need to survive on and to live comfortably with, to be able to give and bless our grandchildren with too. So 30% of what we need comes from a teacher's pension. Now that's all it is. If you're relying on a pension, you know, only 30% of what we want is coming from our pension. So it's not the best thing to rely upon. And then property rentals. Because we have a small portfolio of properties, 21% of our income comes passively from these property rentals. So far, both sources, like over 50% of my income, my wife and my income, comes passively through the pension, through the rentals. And then Caleb is able to pay me 24% of what we need. So 24% of my income comes from the ministry of Caleb. But I have to work hard, of course, for that. And I probably work much harder than what I'm paid for. But it's a labor of love. I enjoy doing it. And to quote Einstein, if you find a job you enjoy doing, you'll never work a day in your life. And so I find that it's like not working to give myself to Caleb. It's a blessing. And so that's kind of passive as well. But you see what I mean. I also get 18% through my consultancy work. So I work with churches and they pay me a small portion of income to enable me to do that and work with them. So we work with 5 or 6 churches in various capacities. And as I say, we get 18%. And the remaining 7% comes from the support of friends. I mentioned before, didn't I, that some people who are wealthy in business are supporting other people in ministry. And I have the great blessing to be able to have 7% of my income being provided from friends who support us. So there's 5 different income streams that enables my wife Sue and I to be able to run Caleb Ministries. And so I say that just so that you can think to yourself, well, he's an example of what he's actually proclaiming here. Okay, so we've got a whole group discussion here now. And the question I want you to consider as a group is, what forms of passive income do you think you might begin to investigate from today, which, if desired, you could at least begin to inquire about doing a course or reading a book or books that would give you the knowledge you need to get started? So pause the recording, have a little discussion about that and see what you come up with, and I'll catch you soon. I wonder how you got on in your discussion group time. I know when I've taught this material in Africa, the response was that, well, maybe some of those things that work in the UK don't work so well here in Africa. And then one guy in the group actually said that because I have an entrepreneurial way about me, I would like to explore ways in which this can work in Africa. This was South Africa. And so he's exploring ways in which this applies in his own context and own country. And I think I would hate you to think that, we're trying to sort of import what works in Britain over to your particular country. That's the last thing we want to do. I want to sow ideas and principles into your heart that you can then go and say, well, how does this apply in my culture? And it'll be very different to how it applies in my culture. But it'll work because there are many opportunities and activities that you can do to earn passive or semi-passive income. So the last part of our notes for this particular module is the final thoughts: Christian reconstruction, redeeming and restoring the earth. So biblical prosperity in its broader sense is God reconstructing his earth to come in line with his word and eternal purposes. He uses his people as instruments to bring about such a reconstruction. You see, if you go all the way back to the fall, where prior to the fall you had the Garden of Eden, the earth was in a perfect place because there was no sin in the world. And so everything about the earth, the plants and the animals that roamed upon it, the seas, the skies, the atmosphere was all in a very pure state. Since sin came into the world, all of that has steadily but surely been corrupted, polluted, and we have a state now whereby sin has laid waste and destroyed much of what Adam and Eve would have enjoyed in that garden and that existence. What I believe God is wanting to do through the new covenant, even though we will be having a new heavens and a new earth in time, but for this season, he's wanting to reconstruct, restore pockets of the earth to express that final rule in the millennial kingdom. And so I want us to have a heart to see that the ultimate goal of prosperity, biblical prosperity, is to restore the earth in all its various and manifold factors and expressions. B, as such, God's desire is to bring prosperity to whole families, whole communities, towns, cities, and even nations, as his kingdom advances and invades the kingdom of darkness. And, you know, if you've ever seen the transformation videos, it was George Otis Jr. has traced the varying expressions of this transformation of the Holy Spirit in whole regions and towns and cities all over the world. And he found that God is on the march and on the move in various portions of the earth to bring about this holistic restoration and transformation. And he cites towns like Almolonga, which is in Guatemala near Mexico. And he says that this one town called Almolonga was once a den of iniquity. And to cut a long story short, because of the Christian presence of people coming in, evangelists and so on, it has been totally transformed. So much so that the policemen have very little work to do because there's not much crime. The jails are empty because there's no people to put in them. The land has begun to grow produce of enormous sizes to illustrate the fact that God is redeeming and restoring pockets of his earth in line with that foretaste of the final rule, as I said earlier. And it lines up with this lovely scripture we've got in our final slide here, which is in 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. And we can see very much that evidence in Almolonga. But I was in Kampala, Uganda, just a few weeks ago, in fact, doing Caleb there. And I was talking to some of the leaders, and they say that 80% of the population of Uganda are born-again Christians. Well, that's a staggering amount of people. And everywhere you go in Kampala, even though it's got its problems, of course it has, and its corruption too, but there is a lot of evidence of Christianity everywhere. And in fact, Kampala was one of the town cities that features on the Transformations videos. And it was a joy to be there to witness the fact that God is about restoring whole cities to his righteousness and for his glory. C, as the church cleanses herself, faithfully gives and seeks the Lord diligently, God will awaken an aggressive spirit that will bring about a holistic transformation with regard to the land and all that goes on in it. He's about to restore lands and the people that live on those lands and the produce that grows out of those lands until it reflects the rule, the kingdom rule and the blessing of God. That's happening in various places. God's current revival transformations see phenomenal changes in the socio-economic climate of the places and lands where they are taking place. So that's really encouraging, isn't it? And as we now bring this session and this module to a close, we just recommend that you consider these things and become leaders who exhibit the blessings of God and leaders who are wisely managing their time so that they're able to release time, not just for themselves, but for others as well. And you are playing your part in redeeming the land for God's glory. God bless you as you think these things through, as you chat and discuss, and as you put into action the things prompted by the Holy Spirit. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next module.